Only days before, on October 1st, the two Summit Avenue flats, vacated in September by the homesteaders of 1942, the ones beneath ours and another across the street 3 doors down, were occupied by Italian families from the first ward. Essentially, their new living quarters had been assigned to them by outright government edict, though with the sweetening incentive of a rent discount of 15%, or $6.37 on their monthly $42.50. Over a 5-year period, that money to be paid directly to the landlord by the Department of the Interior over the life of the initial 3-year lease, and for the first 2 years of a lease's 3-year renewal. Such arrangements derived from a previously unpublicized section of the homesteading plan called the Good Neighbor Project, designed to introduce a steadily increasing number of non-Jewish residents into predominantly Jewish neighborhoods, and in this way enrich the Americanness of everyone involved. What one heard at home, however, and sometimes even at school from our teachers, was that the underlying goal of the Good Neighbor Project, just like that of Just Folks, was to weaken the solidarity of the Jewish social structure as well as diminish whatever electoral strength the Jewish community might have in local and congressional elections. If the displacing of Jewish families and the replacement by the conscripting of Gentile families followed the timetable of the agency's master plan, a Christian majority might well be dominant in at least half of America's 20 most heavily populated Jewish neighborhoods as early as the start of Lindbergh's second term, and a resolution of America's Jewish question close at hand by one means or another. The family conscripted to move in downstairs from us, a mother, a father, a son, and a grandmother, were the Kukazas. Because of my father's years of canvassing the first ward, were the customers whose tiny premiums he collected each month were by and large Italians. He was already familiar with the new tenants, and consequently, when he got home from work on the morning after Mr. Kakuza, a night watchman, had trucked the family's possessions up from their cold water flat in a tenement building on a side street not far from Holy Sepulchre Cemetery, my father stopped off first at the downstairs door to see if, despite his appearing there without a coat and tie and with dirty hands, the elderly grandmother would recognize him as the insurance man who'd sold her husband the policy that had provided the family with the means to bury him. The other Kakuzas, relatives of our Kakuzas, who'd moved from their own first ward Coldwater flat to a house 3 doors away, were a much larger family, 3 sons, a daughter, the 2 parents, and a grandfather, and potentially noisier, more disruptive neighbors. They were associated, through the grandfather and the father, with Richie, the boot, Boiardo, the mobster who ruled Newark's Italian precincts and constituted the city's only serious competitor to Longhi's underworld monopoly. To be sure, the father, Tommy, was but one of a bevy of underlings, and, like his own retired father, doubled as a waiter at Boiardo's popular restaurant, the Vittorio Castle, when he wasn't making the rounds of the taverns, barber shops, brothels, schoolyards, and candy stores of the Third Ward slums to extract their pocket change from the Negroes who faithfully played their daily numbers game. Regardless of religion, the other Kakuzas were hardly the sort of neighbors my parents wanted anywhere near their impressionable young sons, and to comfort us at breakfast on Sunday morning, my father explained how much worse off we would have been if we'd gotten the numbers runner and his 3 boys instead of the night watchman and his son Joey, an 11-year-old recently enrolled at St. Peter's, and, by my father's report, a good-natured kid with a hearing problem who had little in common with his roughneck cousins, whereas down in the first ward, all 4 of Tommy Kakuza's kids had gone to the local public school. Here they'd been enrolled along with Joey at St. Peter's, rather than a public school like ours, brimming with brainy little Jews. And we'll pause there.